I think that I just really wanted to blaze a trail for all women. I had a lot of people in the music industry tell me, you're a great performer, your band is great, just focus on yourself and you'll get a lot farther. And to me, it was never enough. I just always had this vision of, women banding together and bringing each other up and a whole all-girl crew and a movement.
Welcome everyone to Living Not So Fabulously. Today's guest is the unstoppable gatebreaker Shira Yevin. Shira is the founder of Gritty and Pink with her Shiragirl merch, now enshrined in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her big break, or crash as you'll soon see, was born out of a sense of frustration around inequities for opportunities and especially pay for women and other minority communities.
The first segment of Shira's story takes me back to high school, to a very personal story. Sitting in a classroom, we're having a conversation and our teacher was, in some ways, making a strong statement about how he thought men were better than women at jobs. And I raised my hand and I said, I think it depends on the person. And he looked at me and he said, David, I think you need to go down the hall to the bathroom and check out what side you're on. Not only was that a very emasculating experience, it was embarrassing because everybody in the class was laughing at me. And to this day, I sometimes wish that I had had a quick retort or I had called him out on it. But one of the other things I think about a lot today is what kind of message was he sending to the boys in that class about how they should be thinking about the girls and how the girls should be thinking about themselves. And I think that's why it's really important, after hearing Shira's story, that we all find our inner Shira.
Thanks. With that, let's dive into our chat with the rock and roll rebel herself. So picture it. It's 2004, and an all-girl punk band named Shiragirl drives its unmistakably pink truck through the front gates of the Vans Warped Tour, pretty much setting up camp across from the skate park, or skate ramp. Crashing the tour. That was today's guests. What was that like, and what was going through your, what were you feeling like when you were going through that moment?
I was feeling nervous, I was feeling excited, and I was ready to start a revolution,
Nice.
It felt subversive and it felt victorious.
Awesome.
What exactly sparked this moment?
Well, I was working on the tour the summer before, and I noticed no female musicians on stage. And coming from New York and the whole Riot Girl scene, I just didn't understand it because I knew a lot of women in music. And so we just decided to crash the tour in our pink RV that we were traveling in, which was literally color matched to a Barbie doll box. And, so my band and I drove in, set up across from the skate ramp, kind of held our breath. We're pretty sure we were going to get kicked out. Here goes nothing, And Kevin Lyman, founder of the tour, walked up and took a look and said, Shira. And he said, okay, so you on for the rest of the tour? And I think it was both an invitation and a challenge, think you could hang with the big boys? And we did follow the tour for the rest of the summer. There were bets against us making it to, the next stop. But I mean, the girls on the tour loved it. Even though it was mostly dudes on stage, the audience was about half women. And they saw Pink and came running over. And, we would get feedback like, oh, thank you so much for being here. Now you make me want to start a band, So they maybe didn't realize that they could be in the band, So it was inspiring to see, the kind of feedback that we got, especially from young girls.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious about that moment right before you're going through the gate. Was there anything personally or financially going on with you that just said, we're going to do it now?
Well, financially, we were pretty broke. We're a punk rock band on tour, traveling in this 89 Chevy RV that we had saved all our money up to buy, and we were on this like play as you go tour is what we called it. We would like roll into a city, and it was very early in my artistic career of my band. And so at that time I was playing more of like an electro punk sound, kind of like a Peaches thing. Like my band had a DJ. Now we have a full lineup with the drummer and whatnot. But we had prepared some merch to sell. Like it was very punk rock, like DIY, I'd say that we were just kind of like, let's just get enough gas money to make to the next stop. We weren't really thinking big picture, Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, 22 years old, and I'm just like, let's do this. We're thinking about today,
Right.
And at the same time, as I mentioned, I was active in the Riot Girl scene. I think that I just really wanted to blaze a trail for all women. I had a lot of people in the music industry tell me, you're a great performer, your band is great, just focus on yourself and you'll get a lot farther. And to me, it was never enough. I just always had this vision of, women banding together and bringing each other up and a whole all-girl crew and a movement. When it rolled into New York, I went to Kevin and I said, I know so many great female bands, in New York, New Jersey. Can you let me host them? And his thing was, if you can make it happen, I'll let it happen. And somehow I convinced, we had no money, I convinced this big sound company, shout out to Mask Sound, and this guy Bubbles, who was Blondie's sound guy at like CBGB's,
Oh, wow.
to come out for free. I still to this day don't know how I did it, and like set up this whole like sound system for us. We were at Randall's Island. It was like an absolute dustbin. And we hosted like all these bands. I just graduated from Penn and I studied a lot of feminism and, was very inspired by a lot of the Riot Girl bands, Bikini Kill, Don't Do That. And, just thought so many people, just complain about things. And I'm a doer. One of my nicknames is Make It Happen Girl. It's like we could sit around and we could bitch about it or let's do something, So this was our stake in the ground.
Yeah, I love that.
So when you think about that, why isn't there representation of women and that imbalance? You obviously were seeing it on stage, but that's not the only place we are seeing it happen, right? It's throughout the industry, right?
Exactly. It was a much bigger problem than the tour. Record labels weren't signing female bands. Rock radio wouldn't play female bands, and so. And Kevin actually had a lot of women working for him behind the scenes on the tour, and he had 2 daughters, and he would say, I tried to get bands like the Donnas, then, they're too big for me. They don't want to do Warped Tour. It was a very scrappy tour. They call it Punk Rock Summer Camp, but at the same time, of course there were women out there willing to roll up their sleeves and do it. I think it was just the pipeline wasn't there because the industry wasn't supporting it. And at the end of the day, when you're putting together a tour, you need to book acts that are going to sell tickets, know? So it was very much a product of the bigger ecosystem and industry. And, I'm proud to say we came back the following year with an official stage. We hosted Paramore on their first ever tour.
And Joan Jett, right?
And Joan Jett the following year, she graced the stage. She was on the main stage, but she came and I got to sing Bad Reputation with her. She was like, you're going to sing lead and I'm going to play guitar and sing backup.
Oh, wow.
I felt like I was in the Runaways. We were like rehearsing side stage. But she was very supportive, and her label Blackheart Records has been very supportive of both the stage and Gritty and Pink. And, I think for me, it was just about, how can we make a bigger impact? None of those women, 300 female front of bands, would have played the tour if it weren't for our stage. So it was like, we're trying to create a breeding ground, so to speak, and get our foot in the door. And so it's obviously the goal is parity, right? We want to be on the main stage, but and of course it's a very timely argument, right? With what's going on right now with affirmative action and everything. It's like, we do need these initiatives to provide a platform and pave the way. And also to prove the demand, it was incredible. We had Paramore in 2005. They had their crowds, and we were playing on this very DIY stage we created with a truck, we literally cut out the side of a flatbed truck that we bought from Amos, and like painted it Barbie doll pink. But they would get huge crowds. And so it showed like the demand was there. It wasn't that I would hear women don't play this kind of music. Not true. People don't want to listen to women, singing rock music. Also not true. There was all these kind of, misnomers about the situation. And that's
excuses though, really?
Yeah.
It's really excuse. And it's almost like a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Like there's no demand because you're not putting women in front on the stage. So we don't know to what degree they would get an audience, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we've come so far, I don't know if you know the band Interrupters, but Amy Interrupter had a solo record like in the beginning of the early 2000s. And basically she got like a letter, I think, from rock radio saying that like they couldn't play her. I don't want to tell the wrong story, but it was something along the lines. I don't know if it was from the label or the radio station, but they weren't going to play her on. There wasn't the demand supposedly for this, or they couldn't play 2 female front acts in a row. It was a real serious problem. And so then when the Interrupters had their breakout hit, She's Kerosene, about whatever, 5-6 years ago, it was like such a full circle moment for her because they got played on K-Rock and it got picked up and it was like a huge hit, climbed the charts, and it was like, yeah, things have improved. And now you can turn on the radio and you can on alternative radio hear 2 female-friendly acts in a row. It's like a revolution. Who would have thought? But the numbers are still staggering. I mean, overall, it's still women are only 1 in 5 artists played on the radio, which it doesn't seem that way because you have Taylor's, Swift and Beyonce and these big acts, Pink, right? Like touring at stadiums. But, even these women talk about these challenges. So if Taylor and Beyonce are having these issues, like, what does that say for the rest of us, right?
So that was the first part of our interview with the spectacular Shira. She is pure punk pixie dust, right?
Her courage and the results, while not guaranteed, speak to the need for us to just get loud sometimes, right? I mean, they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I guess the screeching sound of an RV along a metal gate gets the stage.
I suppose. So hold on to your amps, folks. We'll be right back after this glittery break. Welcome back, and of course we have more Shira goodness for you.
In the second half of our interview with Shira, she shares more about the results of her bold stunt at the Warped Tour and more about the challenges that women face in all different kinds of businesses.
Yeah, and get this, even today, women are earning 83% of what men are. That's 83 cents for every dollar that a man earns. No wonder she says that we can't wait for the invitation. Sometimes we just have to crash the party.
Alrighty, let's jump back into our interview with the one and only Pink Princess herself, Shira Yevin.
You mean Pink Queen?
Of course, I was just going for alliteration.
Oh.
This has sort of set you on the trajectory of launching Gritty in Pink and inpink.com, and you're kind of like crashing the gates of corporate America, so to speak, because you're not just helping artists, but you're helping women who sort of work behind the scenes, so to speak. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it's working out?
Yeah, so Gritty in Pink, actually, the name came from an article that was written about us crashing the Warped Tour many years ago. But we started as a community of female musicians, the best female musicians in LA, like the bassist for Pink, Eva Gardner. We had Kiki Wong, who's now playing with Smashing Pumpkins. We were doing these all-girl jams. And we had 3 magical months starting in January 2020. Of course, COVID hit. We started doing Instagram live stream fundraisers and Zoom workshops. And then I was trying to figure out what the business model should be. And what we kind of landed on was, at the end of the day, what do women need the most in the industry? They need to get hired and they need to get paid, right? Period.
Right.
So we decided to launch a marketplace called In Pink. And, we're fortunate enough to get the inpink.com domain for a staggering $500. One of my advisors told me that this domain should cost me $15,000. We got to buy it over from a defunct jewelry company.
Oh, wow, nice.
But yeah, so we launched inpink.com as a platform. You could think of it as a female-powered Upwork. And while we did start with a focus on musicians, we did open it up to helping women working in all aspects of the industry because we want to see women on and off stage. We want to see female sound techs, which is very hard to get. And I know because I throw events where I ask venues, can we get a female sound tech? Oh, we don't have any. Do you know any? Yes. Here you go. Inpink.com. So it's a platform to hire female freelancers. And our vision has really grown, to see music as our beachhead market. And we're excited to expand to other verticals to become the global destination to hire female freelancers in every industry. And, the gig economy is growing at an unprecedented rate. Of course, as AI changes the landscape, reducing headcount, and that need to spin up an entire team, especially to collaborate quickly, is impacting more industries. So, we've seen this growth of the freelance economy. And, one of the staggering stats is that women make 50% less on these digital platforms like Fiverr and Upwork. And it's because they're underpricing their services. We are underpricing our services. So we're developing tools like an AI fair pay scale and other tools to, help freelancers and women get paid what they're worth, women and non-binary professionals, and also help these venues and companies and artists, staff female talent because it's not a pipeline problem. I call like it is. Women are there. Women are talented. Women are skilled. It's just because we don't always have, the access, the boys club, we don't, everyone's like, I got a guy, we don't always get access to these opportunities. And so that's what InPink is all about.
Nice.
So it sounds to me like there is a real financial focus to this, right? I mean, obviously, yes, we want the equality in the presence of individuals, the diversity of individuals, but the main driver here is you're seeing that the economics for these women in these fields is suffering because of historical whether it's issues or boys club or whatever the case may be, you're
Right.
seeing these kind of differences and you're trying to fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to help women level up their skills, level up how they run their business. And, and of course there's other struggles besides pricing your services, chasing down payments, invoicing, like anyone who's ever done gig work knows, like sometimes you don't get paid in that 60 days, that
Right.
30, and
Mhm.
you have to repeatedly chase it down. And so, we're trying to solve those problems.
So you said one of the challenges is that women aren't pricing, or these women or non-binary folks aren't necessarily pricing themselves correctly.
At a holistic level, I feel like it comes down to the confidence gap, and socialization. I mean, we all know women get paid. What are we at now? 83 cents to the dollar. If you look at wealth, it's even worse. I think I recently heard that, it's like women get women's wealth. They own 30% of wealth or something compared to like the white man. I mean, it's, so we all know the stats are out there, right? And it's kind of, the odds are stacked against us. So there's a confidence gap. There's a lack of access to information. We're not on the golf course, so to speak, having these discussions. We haven't had access to a lot of these gigs. And again, I really just think it comes down to the confidence. I mean, I like to coach my friends on negotiating for job offers. I can't tell you how many women come to me. Oh, I got this offer for this great job. And I said, great, ask for more. It's you never accept the first offer, right? Never, ever, ever. Well, no, I don't know. I don't want to lose the gig. Trust me, you're not going to lose the gig. I've hired many people. The worst that can happen is they say, no, this is our budget. And then, okay, great. You're right back where you were, but the best that can happen is maybe you get, a few more G's. I'm lucky because I grew up in a household where like money was not a dirty word. In fact, I think we talked about it too much, but I think a lot of women also don't like talking about money. It's like this taboo thing, and there's, oh, let's just get past that part and, let me start the work.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing too, is like being confident, to ask for what you're worth.
I think you bring up a good point because I think that oftentimes the confidence comes from not only experience, but from visibility, right? I mean, we know this statistic that says roughly 97, 98% of all venture capital money goes to straight white men, right? So we don't see a lot of women who are out there starting these corporations that become unicorns. We have all this conversation that's happening with all of these straight white men for the most part as these huge success models to look at. And the reason I ask that is because I know just from our own experience being two queer men and having our own business, we oftentimes will say that to each other. Why are we pricing ourselves at this level? Why can't we price ourselves at something higher? Or maybe we should be asking for more. And you're wanting to basically, I guess, continue the metaphor, bust through the gates of having those kinds of conversations, women on women having those kinds of conversations, saying you are worth more, and let's work on the confidence to get you to where you can say, I am worth more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You brought up the stat of women only, or men getting 97, 98%. And I just want to say, I'm so sick of hearing that 2% number. I don't want to hear it again. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to rewrite the story. I'm fundraising right now. It's a struggle. I live it every day, so I know how it is. But, we did it. We brought Live Nation on board as our lead investor, which I'm grateful for. We have investors from Angels, our alternative wealth partners, and some incredible, strategic angels. And so it is possible. That's what I want to say is,
We're doing
if
it.
I can do it, you can do it. And it might take a little longer, but just stick with it. And I'm going to be the last woman standing. So
Nice. I'm curious, not everyone is a rock star. Well, literally, metaphorically, we're all rock stars, right? But we're not all literal rock stars. How would you advise somebody who's a divorced mom trying to start their own business, or a woman trying to work their way up in corporate America who can't, bust a car through the corporate CEO door? How could they apply what you've done to maybe their lives?
Well, it's interesting because Jody Gerson, who's the chairman of Universal Music Publishing Group, recently was on a panel for Live Nation Women and was talking about how women actually have to ask for a raise differently and then use different language in order to be successful. Women have to say, this is good for the company. Look what I've done for the company. This is going to be a good look for you in the company if you give me this promotion or this raise. That doesn't work for men. Men have to say, I've done all this great work. I deserve it. And it's like, it's so ingrained, no matter if you're a woman or a man, just how we've been socialized. And, it's really interesting because it's not so straightforward as just like ask for more. It also you have to look at the language and the psychology and how to go about it. So, for someone just starting out though, my big thing is just take the leap. I mean, I think there's a lot of fear, and that's why I like this idea of gig work, right? Because it's so easy to sign up for InPink. It's completely free. We don't take a cut of what women earn. You can add a listing, you can do a different listing for all your services. We also there's a lot of musicians and, women in the industry that have side hustles, right? And these days, who doesn't have a side hustle, right? For inflation, right? We all need multiple streams of income. And so I think for a woman wanting to start your own business, it's just like, take the first leap, put yourself out there, and then, build up your portfolio. And yeah, in the beginning, you might have to do, you might have to take some gigs, for a lower rate just to build up your portfolio, and that's part of the hustle. And you want to, build a track record. But, again, I think just so much of it comes down to just women having more confidence, even for me, like having the confidence to start this business for years. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's always been in my blood. I was working in the beverage business for many years, and I worked for Pabst Blue Ribbon, which I called Pabst Bro Ribbon. And I helped launch Bev Can Wine, which got acquired by Gallo last year. And I worked for other startups, Owlsbury Boozy Tea. And, the whole time, it's kind of funny, when you are working in a sort of corporate setting, it's hard to break out of because you become known for what you do. And then you get offers you can't refuse. And that's what happened to me, to be honest. I kept saying, I'm going to leave the beverage business, boys club. Like, I really want to do something in my purpose, and do something with music and women's empowerment, and kind of return to my roots. Even after we did the Shiragirl stage, I was living in Brooklyn. We started a monthly called Girls in the Hood. It was female fronted bands, female DJs, female bartenders, but it's like, you're constantly evolving, like, okay, how do I live my purpose and, pursue my mission and make a living at it, right? And have an actual business model that works.
You're really kind of talking about this idea of you got to take the leap, right? We have to take the leap and get the practice.
Yes.
And I think that that's kind of the answer to your question of how do we motivate other people to do this? And we all have to we have to take the leap to get the courage. We have to start.
So, Shira Yevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. What you're doing and have done is so inspiring. We appreciate it for what you're doing for the community. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm absolutely living for the second half of our interview with Shira.
Absolutely. I think one of the important things that we're talking about here is this idea of closing the gap especially the wage gap for women, non-binary folks, and other minorities. And I think it's really important to have those conversations. And one of the best ways to actually close those wage gaps is to have confidence, as Shira said. And we get that confidence by practicing what it is that we really want to do.
And if you need help practicing negotiating, remember that Shira offers resources in this area. Other resources to consider are Your Next Raise by Paula Pant of the Afford Anything podcast, as well as the New York Times #1 bestseller, Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap of Her First 100K.
So thank you for joining us for another Living Not So Fabulously. You can catch us every Wednesday at noon Eastern on yahoofinance.com, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast fix.
Remember to like, subscribe, and set notifications. And until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.